The day I buried my daughter, my manager copied me on an email chain announcing my replacement. No warning, no empathy, just a line that read, Emily will be stepping away for a while. Sarah will be leading the Waverly account moving forward. I stared at my phone, still holding Aurora's tiny urn in my lap. My fingers trembled, but not because of the email. That was just the exclamation point on a week that had already shattered me. 6 months earlier, I had finally believed the universe was kind. After years of failed IVF treatments, miscarriage anniversaries that felt like funerals, and more syringes than I cared to count, Aurora came into our lives. She was perfect. My dimples, Marcus's sky blue eyes, and a laugh that sounded like hope. We had folded every blanket, washed every bottle, rehearsed lullabies in the quiet nursery that now sat still, filled with a grief too loud to ignore. Then, one morning, she had a mild fever. Doctors called it a normal virus. By that night, we were in the ER. By the third day, she was in the ICU, her tiny chest rising and falling with the help of machines. I didn't leave her side. I read to her. I sang. I whispered, "Stay with me, baby." But on the seventh morning, as sunlight pierced the blinds in cruel defiance of what was coming, Aurora's heart gave out. Just stopped. There's no manual for what happens next. No one tells you how to stand at a child-sized casket, or how silence sounds when you're the only mother at your own daughter's funeral, because no one came, not my parents, not my brother Jordan, just Marcus, whose grief was silent and cold, and a few friends who didn't know what to say. Jordan had texted me the day before the funeral. Sorry, Em. Big news. Got promoted to senior VP, hosting a last-minute pool party. Can't change plans now. Love you. My parents? They didn't text until 2 days after the service. Didn't want to see you in that state. Hope you understand. Will come next month when things settle. They skipped my daughter's funeral for a pool party. I had reserved an entire row for them. Empty seats stared back at me while I clutched a ceramic urn and whispered lullabies to ashes. I wasn't just mourning Aurora. I was mourning the fantasy that I ever mattered to them, not compared to Jordan. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I sat down at my desk, opened a fresh document, and began typing. Not a letter. A plan. Because if they could choose cocktails over a coffin, I could choose silence over reconciliation. And I had something they didn't know. My great-aunt Lillian had passed away 2 years earlier, quietly, without much ceremony. She had no children, but she had me. We shared long phone calls and even longer silences that understood each other. She left me everything, a trust fund, 2 properties, and stock in 3 companies I didn't even know existed. I had never touched a cent, until that night. I also had something else they underestimated. Time. I didn't throw myself into grief. I buried myself in building. I took a leave of absence, medical, I told HR, and began drafting a plan for Aurora's Light, a nonprofit for grieving parents. The first service we offered was free grief counseling for single mothers who had lost a child. I started with 2 therapists, then added 4. Word spread. Donations came. Local hospitals referred families to us. One night, a mother who had just lost twins told me, "This place saved my life." That's when I realized I was saving my own. But the world didn't pause while I healed. At work, I was slipping through the cracks. My mentee, Sarah, began leading meetings I wasn't invited to. When I returned after 6 weeks, my desk had been moved. My access to the analytics dashboard, gone. I asked my manager if I'd missed something. He smiled politely. "Sarah's been stepping up. Maybe you can focus on lower priority projects for now. Ease back in. Or maybe I can lead the ones I created," I said flatly. He blinked, surprised I pushed back. "I'm still grieving, not broken." He didn't respond. At home, Marcus barely spoke. Our grief took different paths, mine external, his hidden behind screens and long showers. He wasn't cruel, just unreachable. And my family? Radio silence, until one day, scrolling Instagram, I saw it. My parents, laughing poolside with Jordan, champagne in hand, caption, celebrating family, only the best ones, of course. That was the moment I stopped waiting for closure. If family was a stage, they had cast me out. So I'd write my own script and buy the theater. If you've ever been replaced while grieving something no one saw, type 1, you're not alone. Did you seriously just submit my report as your own? I stood frozen in the hallway outside the glass conference room. Through the slightly open door, I had just heard Sarah presenting my strategic framework, the same one I'd drafted in a sleepless haze after Aurora died. Slide by slide, word for word, my format, my data, my language, right down to the title, Rebuilding Trust in Pediatric Care Through Predictive AI. She never gave credit, not once. Just a quick smile to the VP as he nodded in approval. I ducked out of sight before they saw me. My stomach turned, not just from the betrayal, but from how unsurprised I felt. In my grief, I had become invisible, and Sarah had been watching, waiting for an opening. I didn't storm in, I didn't yell. Instead, I walked back to my desk, opened my personal Dropbox, and quietly backed up every draft I had authored since returning from leave. Screenshots, metadata timestamps, even internal messages where I'd discussed those exact ideas with my team. I wasn't going to fight her. I was going to document her. Because while Sarah played checkers, I had been playing chess on another board entirely. Outside the office, Aurora's light had become something I hadn't dared dream of. Viral. A pediatrician in Portland wrote a blog about us. Then a therapist reposted it on TikTok. Then a hospital in Miami reached out for a grief resource partnership. Suddenly, donations weren't just trickling in, they were flooding. We had enough to launch grief kits, fund emergency childcare, even cover funeral costs for low-income families. I gave interviews, one to a local station, another to a national morning show. I sat on live TV, heart thumping, hands cold, voice shaking. But I told the story. Not of my daughter's death, but of her light, and how it became a home for parents like me. But just when I thought the distance from my family couldn't stretch further, it tore. One December night, I opened Instagram to a photo that made my lungs lock. Jordan, my parents, champagne flutes, sun hats, same pose as always, same pool. Caption: celebrating another year of blessings with the only family that matters. I wasn't tagged, I wasn't invited, I wasn't mentioned. And then I noticed something. The backdrop, the resort, the exact private villa they had rented for every Carter family holiday since I was 10. A place that once held my laughter and now held only absence. That night, I didn't cry. I called my lawyer. "Can you trace the ownership of a resort in Lake Hollow?" I asked. 3 weeks later, I signed the purchase papers. The resort now belonged to me, acquired discreetly through a holding company under Aurora's light. I didn't buy it for revenge. I bought it for reclamation. If they didn't want me in their family, they couldn't have the places that once belonged to our memories. Still, I waited, patiently, quietly, until the email came. Subject: Sterling Bash 2.0, the biggest Carter family weekend ever. From Jordan Sterling to everyone but me. Forwarded to me by an old college friend who had always thought Jordan was a smug narcissist. I RSVP'd anonymously, not to attend, to observe. We were holding a private team retreat the same weekend. My team didn't know the full plan, just that I had something important to show them. I brought the full staff of Aurora's Light, along with our video crew who had been documenting our journey for a grant proposal. On Friday night, we arrived. I checked into the main villa, introduced myself to the resort manager. "Wait, you own this place now?" he asked, blinking. "Yes," I said. "Starting this weekend, everything changes." The next morning, my family arrived. Jordan stepped out first, Armani sunglasses, shirt unbuttoned halfway. My mother followed, all pearls and faux sympathy. My father trailed behind, sipping cold brew with the entitlement of a man who never cleaned up his own messes. They approached the gate. The guard stopped them. "Private event today. Entire property is booked, he said. Jordan laughed, annoyed. I'm Jordan Sterling. My family comes here every year. Check again. The guard checked the tablet. You were removed from the guest list last night. Removed by who? My mother snapped. That's when I stepped out. White dress, calm, unbothered. Behind me, my staff carried boxes labeled Aurora's Light. The camera crew filmed everything. By me, I said, their faces contorted in confusion and disbelief. You weren't invited to my daughter's funeral, I continued, so I figured it was only fair you weren't invited to my foundation's celebration. My father opened his mouth. Opened. My mother gasped. Jordan muttered something under his breath. The guard raised a hand politely. Please step back from the entrance. As they were escorted out, I handed each of them a card. It read, This weekend was for family. You made it clear I don't belong in yours, so I built one of my own. I didn't look back. If you've ever had to build something just to survive the people who broke you, Type 2. We see you. We hear you. The envelope was thick, heavy in a way that made my stomach drop before I even opened it. It wasn't handwritten. It wasn't emotional. It was a formal letter from a law firm bearing my parents' name in the header. I sat at the breakfast table of my apartment, sunlight hitting the coffee I hadn't touched. The letter was cold, direct. Request for financial assistance. Subject, pending foreclosure of primary residence. My parents weren't writing to reconnect. They were asking for help. Apparently, after years of overspending on Jordan's startup, lavish family trips, and 3 separate renovations to keep up appearances, they were broke, and worse, on the verge of losing their home. The twist? The house was in my name. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, legally. When I was 21, my father had transferred the deed to me during a tax shelter maneuver. He'd said it was temporary, something to avoid a capital gains headache. I'd forgotten about it. So had he, until now, when his financial crash collided with my accidental ownership. I took a slow breath, flipped to the second page. We are formally requesting that you sign the attached documents to remortgage the property in our name. We trust you understand the urgency. No apology, no acknowledgement, just entitlement. I stared at the wall for a full minute. Then I called my lawyer. A week later, I invited them to my office. They arrived 15 minutes early. I made them wait 20. When I finally opened the door, they stood, smiling nervously. Emily, my mother said, stepping forward, sunglasses still on, though we were indoors. My father didn't speak. His face was pale, jaw tight. Come in, I said. Sit. They did. I didn't offer coffee, or water, or comfort. I slid a single sheet of paper across the table. My mother glanced at it. What is this? A letter, I replied. It says, I forgive you, but I no longer owe you anything. My father looked up, eyes narrowing. You're giving the house back? I shook my head. No, I'm donating it. Donating? To who? To Aurora's Light, I said calmly. The house will become a grief retreat center, a place for parents who've lost children and have nowhere to go, a space of rest, healing, purpose. My mother's mouth dropped open. You can't do that. That's our home. No, I said, my voice quiet but steel. It never was. You made sure of that the day you chose a party over your granddaughter's funeral. Silence fell like a curtain. My mother started to cry. Real tears. My father looked down, ashamed or angry. I couldn't tell which. Maybe both. I didn't comfort them. I let the weight of that moment settle, like snow on a rooftop. Quiet. Crushing. Then I stood. You're welcome, I said, to attend the ribbon-cutting ceremony. They looked up, startled. As guests, I added. But don't bring champagne, just kindness. The months that followed felt surreal. The house transformed. My team gutted the inside, rebuilt rooms with soft lighting and warm blankets, stocked the kitchen with comfort food, turned the basement into a therapy space. We kept the old fireplace, though. Aurora would have liked that. Donations flowed. Parents came from all over. They cried on porches, laughed through tears in the garden, lit candles at night, and whispered names of children gone too soon. On opening day, we hosted a small ceremony under the oak tree in the backyard. Jordan didn't come. Word was he'd left the country. His business had collapsed after screenshots from the resort fiasco went viral. Investors fled. His brand was toxic. My parents showed up, though. They stood near the back. Didn't speak. But when I caught my mother's eye, she nodded. Just once. No smile, just recognition. It was enough. That night, after everyone left, I stayed behind. I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, wrapped in a shawl that still smelled like Aurora's old room. The wind blew gently through the trees. I hummed her lullaby under my breath. Then I lit a candle and placed it by the steps. It flickered. Once, twice, then held steady. This house wasn't haunted anymore. It was reborn. And so was I. If you've ever forgiven someone without letting them back in, type 3. That's what real power looks like.